You know, there was a point there when Matthew Vaughn left X-Men Days of Future Past as director to go and pursue a loose movie adaptation of Mark Millar's The Secret Service, and my instant reaction was, huh, he left the big Avengers-sized X-Men movie for that? To be fair, I probably wasn't all that attracted towards it because I had only seen around 5 seconds of the trailer, which appeared to feature a very real-looking British street punk, i.e. what the locals like to call a chav, being recruited into a secret agency and being focused on as a central protagonist, which had me going, really? And I was also kinda still bitter about his leaving X-Men. Fortunately, we now know that that all turned out okay, and in this case, I couldn't have been more wrong to react as such, because Kingsman f***ing rocks. Hot off of the success of Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class, Vaughn returns to spearhead another new comic book adaptation with the same kind of determination that informed films like last year's Guardians of the Galaxy and the Lego Movie, with such shameless enjoyment of its own material and existence that it essentially feels like watching the cast and crew have a big party after they got the big box office takings whilst making the movie. Proving once and for all that, like him or not, Vaughn really is one of the cleverest risk-taking directors in the blockbuster business today. I can't say that Kick-Ass and First Class are flawless pictures with much conviction, but what they did do is something unique and brave which breathed new life into their own respective genres and franchises. This time round he gives us Kingsman: The Secret Service, a bold thrill ride full of balls-to-the-wall action, a wild irreverence in the face of modern-day self-serious spy thrillers, clever witty humour, and the same completely unforgiving prominence of over-the-top comic book violence you can come to expect from one of the few directors to pull it off with such precision in recent years. Not only has he got Fox to clearly spend a lot of money on an over-the-top, ultra-violent, high-concept action spy flick, inherently making the movie an R-rated piece, but to also expect a film about a lot of stuff that is typically, well, British, to appeal to anyone outside of the UK, that takes guts, and this film has plenty of it. Think of it all as, what if Eastenders had humour and heart, and suddenly found that it existed in the same world as the colourfully camp Roger Moore 007 series? Our story sees Eggsy, an unrefined but promising street kid with a difficult home life, being recruited by Colin Firth's Harry Hart, who once worked with his now dead father, into the super secret spy organisation Kingsman's ultra-competitive training programme. All the while, a global threat soon emerges, with Samuel L. Jackson's business tycoon Richard Valentine releasing a new set of SIM cards for mobile phones around the world, claiming to give them free service forever. And to no one's surprise, the Kingpin's actual motives aren't so kind, and a plan to minimise the Earth's population by triggering the hostile part of the human brain is put in motion. From then onwards, it's a game of who can be trusted, who will survive, and what can they do to stop the threat before the entire world essentially kills itself. While everyone will be walking away with the surprising takeaway that Colin Firth can actually handle the action role with ease, and make no mistake, a huge set piece inside of a church is arguably the ultimate testament to that, but that shouldn't take away from Taron Egerton's feature-length debut as Eggsy, who manages to pull off the character with such confidence and consistency that this will undoubtedly be the vehicle that gets him on Hollywood's radar. Deservedly so, he's great in this. And while the protagonist's attitude and demeanour, which sees him sporting the baggy trousers, the cap, and the Nike trainers, feels so familiar that, yes, it did indeed turn me off a bit from wanting to see the film at all, it in fact adds to its tendencies to switch up the genre. This archetype is typically portrayed in a more negative light, that reversing it feels not only refreshing, but also brings with it an important real-world message, in that sometimes the people often viewed as the lost causes can turn out to be the ones that surprise you, prove their worth, and win the day. Don't judge a book by its cover and all that. And for the first time in a while, Samuel L. Jackson seems to be having a lot of fun in the role of Valentine. With a taste for colourful gangster wear and a lisp, he winds up somewhere between a modern-day Bruce Wayne and Blofeld in on-screen persona. And Mark Strong turns in a surprisingly memorable and funny performance as Merlin, the Kingsman instructor. I will say that the training sequences, while fun to see Eggsy's brain work and how the agency decides to test its recruits, do sometimes feel as if they belong in a different film. It's a lot of the typical Hogwarts but for spies stuff that you're more used to seeing in generic formula teenage secret agent flicks, meaning yes, there are the obligatory bullies, but the biggest compliment I can give this section anyhow is that it's the most interesting version you've seen nonetheless, and each and every one of the tests is saved by a very clever payoff. And once the characters on either side are established and the big overarching conundrum is at play, ready to be dealt with once and for all, the movie makes up for that seen it all before stuff with an absolutely terrific Hit Girl style brawl full of awesome fights and gadgets, high stakes, great choreography, and the sequence completely relishes in its own colourful scope and spectacle. It also happens to be the part of the film showing Egerton's range as an actor. You'll know what I mean when you see it. And while the final joke that ends the film kinda contradicts the whole self-referencing genre subversion the film was committed to the whole time beforehand, where any expectation to be like an average 007 flick had characters going, nah, about that sort of stuff, I'd be lying if I said it didn't still tickle my funny bone, for the simple fact that the big action finale is essentially a commercial aimed towards the audience, inviting them all to want to be Kingsman agents themselves, and the end gag serves as icing on the cake as to say, come on, you so want to be this guy right now, don't lie. But I get that it might be a little cruder than some would hope. And on that note, just in case the ladies are a little hesitant and worried that it might be a little too geared towards lad humour for their tastes, which it really isn't, hey, it still has plenty of good looking men in suits saving the world. What do you reckon my girlfriend was asking me to wear more often after seeing this film? And last but not least, in case you had any doubts that this wouldn't be as R-rated as you'd hoped, the film commits to its unapologetic celebration of over-the-top comic violence so much that the one character who doesn't like violence is the villain. After a good month or so of self-serious Oscar flicks, this was exactly the breath of fresh air that I needed. This is a hell of a lot of fun at the movies, and I can't wait to see it again. This movie's awesome. Cheers for watching, guys, and as always, if you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel.